Creepy ladies, and if you think that men are the only one that can creep people out, you are wrong. So let us grab a blanket, turn off your lights for true scary females that I would rather not meet. A woman crouching on the road. Hello, I've been more or less unusual story that I like to tell ya. I have a clear memory of it. It takes place last year in 2021 to the day on October 26th. I was often driving back and forth from Montreal to Quebec City for my work and to see my family. It was late because I was driving almost at night at around 7 p.m. I was not on a highway but on a national road, not very busy, surrounded by forests and plains. I didn't really mind driving at nighttime because I had good vision and little fatigue. But halfway to my goal in the distance, in the middle of the road, I realized that there was someone crouched down who seemed afraid. I was close to a town, so seeing a person didn't seem strange. Obviously, I wasn't going to run over him. I stopped on the side and I realized that it was a woman about my age who was crying. I go out and ask her if she is safe, if she's feeling well. After a few minutes of silence, she ended up telling me in a feverish tone that she was being followed and that she was very afraid. I didn't know what to do. The stress was building up. This has never happened to me before on the road. I stayed close to her, but I could hear footsteps behind us coming up the side of the road. At first, it was just a vague and distant shadow of my point of view, then a silhouette of a tall, thin man. My brain quickly understood that this was the person the girl was afraid of, but she was paralyzed, still crouching. So I took her in my arms and put her in my car to take her to the nearest police station, so at least she would be safe and have a roof over her head for the night. I then started the engine and continued driving normally, but in the central rearview mirror, I could see the man more precisely. He was standing and not moving. He was dressed in an untidy way. To my astonishment, he got down on all fours as an animal would until the distance cut me off from his view. After this story, which was quite frightening at the time, I took the young woman back to a Quebec station and explained the situation. And after a few days, I was able to get some information. This woman, who, if I may have given anecdote for my companion today, fortunately I took this road that day, she had broken down in the middle of the road. A man had come talk to her and offered to help her and invite her to his house. She refused, finding the man aggressive and insistent, but the man was not satisfied. He started to grab her hand, and she started to struggle and run. I found her after she had run ahead of this man. She was having a panic attack at the time. The man then followed her until I saved her, as she says today. That's the story. If you have any questions, I can answer them. I sexted with a psycho. A few years ago, I was at one of the lowest points in my life. My wife had left me, so I was alone, heartbroken and depressed. I don't have many friends, so I had nowhere to go. I would just walk around stores for hours on end, so I wouldn't have to be at home by myself thinking about how shitty my life was. I was very nearly committed suicide on more than one occasion, but somehow talked myself out of it. During this time, I had come across an adult webcam site that I would hang out on, not only for the obvious reasons, but also because you could actually chat with people. Eventually, I started broadcasting myself. If you've never been to one of those sites, think Twitch but with nudity. People can view your cam, tip you, and subscribe to be notified when you are online. I didn't have many people in my room at first, but eventually I started getting a few anonymous viewers, and it was kind of exciting that someone was watching me. Before long, I was up to dozens of viewers and some subscribers even. I even started getting some tips and making a little money on the side, doing something that, let's face it, I was gonna do every evening anyways. It was mostly guys watching me, of course, but although I am straight, it didn't bother me too much. It gave me people to talk to at least. I would, however, get females, or at least guys, saying that they were females from time to time. Eventually, a girl named Britt started stopping by regularly. She was different than most of the people I met on the site because she actually seemed interested in talking to me, and I, of course, enjoyed the attention. Whenever she would stop by, the whole room would become a lot more fun, I guess. We started private messaging, and I even made her a moderator for my room. She asked if I had Kick, which at the time I never even heard of, to be honest, but she explained it was a texting app that you don't have to give out your number to use, so we started chatting offline using it. We would talk for hours. I found out she lived halfway across the country, which I actually liked because there meant no pressure to meet in person right away. We sent pictures. She was very, very attractive, and at some point began sexting with one another. Even though I doubted much would ever really come out of it, it was great for me at that time because it gave me someone to talk to, and it was, to be honest, really helping me rebuild my shattered self-esteem and confidence. This went on for a few months, and eventually we started talking less and less and less. I kind of expected that this wasn't gonna go anywhere, so it didn't bother me at all when she stopped responding altogether. I never had any illusions that this was going to be a long-term relationship. I figured she had found someone real near her, and decided that someone she could actually be with was so much better than a long-distance fling with someone she never even met in person before. It was fine. By this point, I had met a few girls myself, so I wasn't too upset. I did miss chatting with her sometimes because I really enjoyed talking to her, and she'd been there for me during a pretty dark time. Anyways, I went on with my life and started dating someone, and we ended up going on a trip to the beach together. A couple days after I got back, I got a message from Britt asking if I was in Florida. What the heck? How would she know that I was in Florida? I said no, but I had been there last week. She said that she was there now, and we must have just missed each other. We talked for a bit. She asked me where I had stayed and told me she was down the street from that hotel. When I told her that I had been there with someone, she got pretty upset and then stopped messaging me again. I was a little confused and more than a little weirded out that she had known where I had been, but I didn't think too much of that situation. I told myself it must have been another strange coincidence and just forgot all about it together. Then things took a turn for the worse. A few weeks later, I got another message from Britt late at night after my girlfriend had gone to sleep. Who the fuck is she? I had no idea how to respond to her. I asked her what the heck she was talking about, and she went on to describe my girlfriend and asked me why I thought I could get away with cheating on her. I was literally floored. Not only had I never been in an actual relationship with Britt, I had never even met her in person. On top of that, she had stopped speaking to me for months, and now suddenly she knew that my girlfriend and what she looked like, and now she was sleeping next to me and accusing me of cheating on her. I expressed all of this to her and then asked her how she knew what my girlfriend looked like, thinking she was on Facebook stalking me or something like that. Her reply made my jaw drop and felt like somebody had just tossed a brick into the pit of my stomach, because I can see her in your fucking bed. I immediately closed the blinds and checked the house and made sure the doors and windows were locked. I told her that we had never ever been in a relationship and that we were most definitely not in one now. I asked her to please leave me alone and never ever contact me again. She just responded, LOL, and a smiley face. It was at this point that I noticed the light on my webcam was on. She had somehow hacked into my computer and turned my friggin' webcam on. I unplugged it and threw it in the closet. Britt then sent me another message. You're no fun anymore. I reiterated that this was unacceptable. I did not want to talk to her ever again, and that I should not leave me alone. I would contact the police. Then I blocked her from every form of communication I ever used with her and uninstalled the app. The next day, I had my cable company change my IP address, and I haven't heard from her since. But I'm still paranoid that this isn't over. So, crazy sexting internet stalker. Let's not meet again. A woman with 4 eyebrows. I called the cops like you asked. So, this just happened to me like 15 minutes ago, and more than anything, I'm just embarrassed that I couldn't have just rolled it off my back and not gotten scared. I live in a fairly low-rent, shady apartment complex since I am in college, and it's what I can afford. Obviously, we're all social distancing for COVID right now, but I really wanted to try to just get a bit more sunlight to help me and my sanity from being at home all day every day in the darkness, so I naturally went out of my apartment and sat on a bench near the bus stop just to sit for a little while. I put my earbuds in and called a friend. In my peripheral vision, I could see people standing outside their doors to have cigarettes, and a lady walking her dog, but we were at least like 40 feet away from each other, so no one seemed worried about anything. A couple were talking outside their door, and for a moment, I thought they were looking at me. I figured I was just being paranoid for all of this, though until the woman started walking my direction. As she was walking, I was keeping an eye on it, but trying to act like I hadn't even noticed her. The bench that I was on was near the mailboxes for the whole complex and the bus stop, so I figured there were plenty of reasons other than me should she be coming my way like this. That was until she stopped just in front of me. I looked up, noticed I'd seen this woman once before on the bus. She wears a lot of really heavy dramatic makeup, including drawing on a set of eyebrows just below the ones she'd already growing. She once started talking to me on my morning bus ride to school and gave me an itemized list of things she didn't like about my face. At that moment, I just sort of smiled and nodded and then looked the other way the rest of the trip. It looked like maybe she was talking, so I pulled my earbuds out and hung up on my friend abruptly. "Sorry," I said. "Could you call the police for me?" she said. "Oh, okay," I said, picking up the phone to do that. "Actually, never mind," she said quickly. She looked nervous. Are you sure?" Yeah. Could I have $1? I told her I didn't have any change on me at that time, and I apologized for it. "Oh, okay. Actually, could you call the police for me?" "Yes," I said again, unlocking my phone again this time. "Wait, actually, it's fine," she said, now just smiling creepily at me. Now, when she said it the first time, my brain at first thought, she's not visibly injured, maybe she is in trouble. She had been fighting with that man I saw her with before. Was she in danger? Was she being so casual with me because she needed help, but didn't want to alert someone that she was trying to get it? I looked her in the eyes and said, "Are you sure? I can really call someone if you need it," she said. "No, it's fine." Now, some important context about me, as I do have some history of trauma. I don't really want to elaborate too much, but the short is that I'm left with a lot of fear people touching me or violating my personal space, because some things from when I was growing up. My body now has basically the worst response when someone violates my boundaries, which is to go very limp and let the other person do whatever they want to me in the hopes that if I do not struggle, they won't hurt me as much. It's basically the worst response I could have, but it's very hard to reprogram my body after all these years, especially, during my mental illness issues. I've also spent significant periods of my life in psychiatric hospitals for treatment of this. I've met a lot of different people with different issues in the hospitals, so I have a bit of sense for when someone might not be all there mentally, The longer I talked to this woman, the more of a sense I got that she was perhaps not totally in her right mind. Now, I'm the hospital. I have the similar experiences where someone who wasn't fully lucid cornered me. I had that happen, and I got trapped in a potentially not safe situation before. This all made worse by my inability to get people to just leave me alone and protect my physical space while my body's been triggered into fight or flight. in the hospital when this happens. The hope is that staff notice and get me away, with mixed results, of course, as a lot of things go on in hospitals that staff end up getting either unaware or not noticing until it is too late, but that is a different story. So at that moment, my body decided it was time to fuck me over. I started to realize that this woman was getting closer and closer to me, and probably not totally well in the head. My body started pumping adrenaline all throughout my body, which made my hands and legs start to feel weak. I felt like I couldn't even breathe, and my head started to go a little fuzzy. This woman positioned herself to sit down next to me, and I started to try to get up. "Hey, do you want to walk to the store with me?" she said. I stood up. Sorry, I can't. I have to take my friend to, somewhere. I realized I couldn't think of a lie fast enough. My brain wasn't even cooperating. He's been texting me all day, and I'm sorry. "Okay," she said, now standing next to me. I start to walk back from the bench back over to my building. My legs were feeling pretty wobbly, but I tried to walk as casually as possible, as not to draw that much attention to myself. Behind me, I could hear her following. She wasn't moving too fast. I thought maybe she thought I wouldn't notice. Still, I tried to not seem scared. Not that my legs would have been able to run anyways. I got into my building about 60 seconds before her, and she was still definitely following. I kept thinking, I just need to get into my apartment, lock the door before she sees which one is mine. My apartment is on the second floor, but it's a short flight of stairs, and you can see my apartment door from the bottom, where the main door to the building is. I tried to run up them, but my head was swimming, and my legs were not cooperating. It's like that feeling when you're half awake and you try to move your limbs, and they sort of do what you tell them to do, but not really. Like they feel sort of far away from you and only semi under your control. I made it up the stairs, and luckily I left my door unlocked. I got in and closed it behind me just as I heard her opening the main door to the building below me. I locked all 3 locks on my door at that moment and went over to the window to see if I could still see her. She wasn't visible from the window, which meant she was still inside of my building. I texted my dad and asked if he thought I ought to call the police. He told me I should. I went into my bedroom and called 911. Now the windows in my bedroom show the other side of the building, and it also showed the back door as well. The operator says she wants to ask for a description and if I knew where she was at this very moment now. And I told her I couldn't see her out my front windows, so I thought she was still inside of the building. Then suddenly, I saw her walk out and stand just below my window. The 911 operator said she'd sent a few officers in to call back if she left. I backed away from the window a bit. I was worried she'd see me looking at her and then know which unit I was inside of. She looked around for a bit and then just slowly started wandering away towards a different building, looking like she might try to talk to the woman who was walking her dog. Later, 2 of the officers parked and went to talk to her while the 3rd drove off. I watched all this happen. I watched as they talked to her for a while, and then eventually the man I'd seen her talking to at the start came out of a different building that they'd been standing in front of before and seemed to coax her in. The officers let her go and talked to the woman with the dog for a moment, then drove away. I think probably they decided she has a mental illness issue and wasn't actively a threat to anyone, so they let it be, which is okay by me. I know that some people deal with chronic issues and can be a little alarming to the people in their community, but most of the time don't actually pose much of a threat. Now, I'm just sitting here feeling like an overdramatic fool and waiting to regain full control of my limbs and for my heart rate to go down. But, lady with 4 eyebrows, I would really like us to stop meeting.